Thanks to my Ko-fi supporters that make these videos possible. You can also get a deck review on my weekly Tuesday and Sunday streams. It's the best way to support the channel.
Hello everyone. When you think of iconic commander cards, Phyrexian Arena is probably up there as one of the most iconic you can imagine, at least for black. Hell, it's in the top 100 most played cards in EDH Rec. For 1 black, you get an enchantment that makes you draw a card and lose 1 life during each of your upkeeps. Its effect of giving you a slow trickle of value is perfectly evocative of the long, drawn-out games that the 4-player, 40-life total format of Commander produces. Games of Commander can go on for a while, so something that draws you a card every turn of that a while is surely a safe bet to be a good card in a deck, right? I seriously do think it's a good idea to start with a little context here first. I shitpost about Phyrexian Arena a lot. Like, a lot. I often mention it on the Magic Mirror podcast. It's one of my first cuts from viewer decks on streams. And I even post about it on my socials while I'm drunk.
Phyrexian Arena is broken. In fact, it should be a game changer. That's how.
Game changer?
Yeah, Phyrexian Arena should be a game changer.
You think so?
Yeah, absolutely.
I never thought I'd have to make this video, but I made a community post recently asking y'all to answer with your best and worst takes of mine. And while I may make another video about these responses, one frequent reply stood out to me. Roughly 10% of y'all mentioned my negative opinion of Phyrexian Arena in some way as a take you disagreed with. Now, some of those are joke replies. Once again, Phyrexian Arena is the center of a lot of memeing by me, but there are some that are a bit more serious, genuinely asking me about my opinion on the card and why I dislike it so much. I figured I owed you all a genuine reply dissecting my feelings about the card. Now, good old Phyrexian Arena here used to not always be so bad, but if there's one thing that Magic has done in the last decade, it's speed up. The Commander player of old was worried things like Avenger of Zendikar and Sepulchral Primordial. Those things don't nuke the game the same way as a lot of commanders of today do, like Voha and the Wise Mothman and Valgavoth, Herrer of Souls, that not only provide soul-crushing value to your opponent, but are also a lethal threat even before you could think of deploying a 7-drop that reanimates a Llanowar Elf in a 3-drop. Now, of course, there were Craterhoofs and Natural Orders and Deadeyes, oh my, but those were played by Steven, and you stayed on the opposite side of the game store from him, so you didn't have to play games together. In all seriousness, what I mean to say is power level matching is an important part of this format, and of course in a Bracket 2 game, Phyrexian Arena can perform well, but we've moved well away from Bracket 2 being the average power where people are playing at. Even then, it can have pitfalls in every power level that are super nauseating, to say the least. This is where we get into one of the first replies on my post, coming from Haru CS2, who says that Phyrexian Arena is too low of a power level to be removed, unlike something like Aristic Study or Greater Good, and also because of all that other stuff I said earlier about must-kill commander threats that are running around nowadays in Bracket 3. Well, here's the thing, my opinion about Phyrexian Arena is not solely shaped about it being removed. Phyrexian Arena is an upkeep trigger, meaning you need to wait at least 1 turn after spending 3 mana to get your first card back. That is not worth 3 mana. In fact, I'm not happy until I get about 4 cards back from Phyrexian Arena, 3 for the initial 3 mana investment, and then 1 as interest. This puts it on par with something like Dire Sight in my mind. So keeping in mind that most people play 2-drop ramp, which doesn't accelerate you into Phyrexian Arena well, the best case for Arena in most decks is when it's played on turn 3. Meaning you're not going to get 3 cards out of it until turn 6, and you'll not see 4 cards, which once again is where I consider Phyrexian Arena fully worth it, until turn 7. You know, like the turn of the game that nowadays has super threatening plays that can close the game at Bracket 3 and 4. Like, look at the bracket system's new diagram. Y'all are promised 6 turns before people start getting clapped, so Arena's freshness is on a timer. A short one. So, yes, it can be targeted removed, and it's more likely to get swept up in a Farewell or Bane of Progress or something, but the real issue here is that it's only worthwhile if you get 3 to 4 turns out of it, as in played on curve, for most decks. Even if you're a turn late, it becomes a 3-mana draw 3, in which case Stock Up, Painful Truths, and even Dire Sight can be a better card. And those are also live top decks in a late game scenario, where Arena is not. Now, wait, what if I have a Mana Dork filled deck? Or what if I Dark Ritual it out in turn 1? While these do cure the timing issue, it doesn't cure the late game top deck issue the card has. This also leads us into another point that gets made about Arena, like Andrew Greenwood says here, that Arena gets better the more effects you run that are like it, so you always land one early. Issue: once again, you want to draw 4 cards off an Arena before you're paid back with interest. What happens when one of those draws is another Arena effect you jammed your deck full of? Well, now you need another turn, which is sure, maybe accelerated by playing that new Arena effect, but once again, now you're paying mana that doesn't affect the game state right away, which is a tempo death sentence in the early to mid game. Anyway, this is the perfect segue into the next point here from a commenter. Brazen Helm says, Phyrexian Arena is an okay card, but your explanation for why you hate it makes me want to put it in all my decks. Should I be cutting lands for my deck because they're a bad top deck late game? This is a pretty common argument I hear for Arena. What about the mana dorks? They're also bad to draw in the late game and good to play in the early game. What about lands? The issue here is with mana efficiency and timing windows. If you top deck a dork, say turn 4 or 5, a turn you'd feel really bad to play your Phyrexian Arena, it's much easier to weave a 1-drop or even 2-drop dork alongside another play or while holding up removal. On top of all this, due to their lower cost to deploy, makes it so you don't really mind if you don't get 3 or 4 turns out of that dork. Just 2 will be fine. If you get 1 to 2 turns of extra mana to play threat before schedule, that 1 mana dork has paid you back already with interest. As for the land example, you need to hit a land drop every turn of the game in most decks until at least about turn 6 or 7. Cutting lands to have less bad top decks is like not putting gas in your car to save money. It's a non-starter. Besides, everyone I know, including me, is already enjoying greed maxing our lands with land cyclers, MDFCs, and the like to turn as many lands as possible into good top decks, even in the late game. Besides, bad top decking is often a sign of bad card flow. And when you have good card flow in a deck, you don't really need Arena, and vice versa. If you have bad card flow, you really have so many better options than Arena. Let's go into those now. If your black deck really needs more value engines, you're spoiled for choice. Now, these might have some weaknesses over Arena here and there, but what is important is to look at the card's medians, and yeah, all these cards mog Arena there, I feel. Starting with Morbid Opportunist. Opportunist triggers once per turn to draw a card, on any player's turn, whenever any creature dies. What I like here about Opportunist is an Aristocrat deck, you can all but guarantee 1 card a turn cycle. Even still though, creatures die often. So often that the Opportunist here might actually end up drawing you 2 cards in a turn cycle, even if you aren't an Aristocrats deck. Meaning Morbid Opportunist here pays you off so much more quickly than an Arena would. Also, just that ability to catch up even if it doesn't come down turn 3 or to combo it with a kill spell in the same turn is super valuable to me. Next up is Night's Whisper, and any other black draw spells for that matter. This is what I always recommend to black players with bad card flow that are too generic to have synergistic card draw. The ceiling here might be lower than Arena with these spells, but the floor is so much higher it's absurd. Hell, if you have any number of creatures in your deck, Phyrexian Arena is also just bested by the recently printed Requiem Monolith, withdraws a card immediately, and if you're in a deck with Kumbaj Witches or Blasphemous Act, you're off to the races. I mean, I don't even know what to say if you want another example of a generic staple card draw spell, like look no further than Barrogoyf. Its Death Touch makes it a killer blocker, and it also makes it hard to block. And when it connects, it digs for creatures. It's more expensive than the other generic spells here, but this can easily be replaced with something like Dire Sight or Blood Pact just fine for those of you on a turbo budget. Those were just recommendation for black decks that have no synergistic draw maneuvers at their disposal as well. For any black sack deck, Braid's Arisen Nightmare is only $3. Living Death is a game-winning amount of advantage in 1 spell. Grim Haruspex type creatures become your bread and butter. In any black life gain deck, Darkstar Augur becomes quick to pay you off, requiring only 2 turns instead of Phyrexian's 4 turns thanks to Offspring. Not to mention being able to block with them right away if you're under pressure. And Veinwitch Coven or Witch of the Moors lets you recur creatures because keep in mind, Card advantage doesn't always come in the form of literally drawing cards, but reusing cards as well. A black graveyard deck, like one using Tortured Existence or other effects that can return creature cards to play, can lean heavily on mill as actual card draw. Doom Whisperer, my favorite double Ancestral Recall Stitcher Supplier, and Sivirus Nightmare Speaker all make their home well in these decks. Large mana value black decks like Cabal Coffers or Reanimator have Parker Luck and Keen Duelist, which kill your opponent in addition to drawing cards. Long story short, black is turbo spoiled for choice in generic draw and synergistic draw, even when on a budget. And this gets even more stupid when you add more colors and therefore get access to things like Azra Oddsmaker, Painful Truths, or God forbid, Timna the Weaver. You also, if I had to wager, just have room for more synergy in your deck in general. I've lost count the number of times I've cut an arena from a deck that just used the slot better for a synergy piece that created as much, if not more value than the Phyrexian Arena. It's not just that Phyrexian Arena is generic in most decks, so I turn up my hipster nose and go, ew, ew. It's that it's offensively fine on top of being generic. I was oiling Night's Whisper earlier, and that's the most generic card on Earth, and yet I still love it to death, and I play it in decks. Even still, that hipster synergistic advantage I love in almost any other form can not only meet Arena at its level, but best it. That's what makes me super mad about Arena. Okay, so what about those slow hipster things I just mentioned that I like? Tech Curb mentions my tutor for Felia, then use the Felia to find something else with the tutor, while simultaneously needing things to do stuff right away, feel like incompatible points. Yeah, on the surface it appears this way, but here's the life hack. I don't always grab the dog. Firstly, what is important to note is that the card quality of Recruiter the Guard and Felia here are both super high by themselves without any shenanigans. In my Selesnya Kellen deck, I would say I grab Felia maybe a quarter of the time. Other times, I'll grab Mother of Runes for protection, Quasali Pridemage, or Lauren or Solitude for removal, Heronblade Elite to kill people, Guardian of Faith for protection. I'm spoiled for choice here with the Recruiter if Felia isn't correct. For those that are concerned about the dog's safety, that's cute and all, but she can really handle herself well. I've never had an issue swinging with Felia, and even if you do, you typically run this deck with Giver of Runes or Mother of Runes and other things that can give you some protection. In Kellen, not only do I have those Mother and Giver effects, but I also have Kudo, which shrinks everything down to Felia's size or smaller, or Champion of Lambholt, preventing blocks. All that context of what deck I am running this in is super important to understanding why I like this so much more than Phyrexian Arena. And I didn't even mention the god curve of 2-drop end-step Felia into untap land Recruiter get another tutor. Like, drawing both is an incredible value spike, and chances are, that early, there is no blocker for Felia kicking around for at least one player. Speaking of context though, there are places where I actually do like Phyrexian Arena. I think it's super fun that it triggers on your upkeep instead of how a Howling Mine would, meaning it works well with Paradox Haze or a Becca Splitter of Seconds. Speaking of draw step triggering, it also works well with Solitary Confinement, which skips your draw step but not your upkeep, meaning it plus any other repeatable source of card draw like the Monarch makes you practically immortal under the confinement. Like, this card still does have a home, I just think that its time in the generically good spotlight is over. Let me know though, is there a card you feel that is past its prime that people are still running? Do you run Phyrexian Arena? If you do, why? Let me know down in the comments below, and until next time, bye!